welcome to the red half of Sheffield. I can't call this a preview pod because it's not a preview pod, it's a special guest pod. And a lot of you will know this man by his familiar voice, the one of the many voices to bring live Blades coverage every Saturday, home and away. It is the man. You'll know it if you're not watching the video, but you'll know it especially when you hear the man's voice. It's Adam Oxley. Ox, how are you?
I'm very well, Chad, and thank you. That's nice. Ox is what I was pretty much called all the way through school, so that's nice. Good way to start.
Yeah, there you go. So we might as well get into it. Tell us a little bit about how you got into, I guess, radio in commentary.
It's one of those things when you were growing up that you always want to do something fun, don't you, that you enjoy. And I was always like, well, my dad played football to a good level, so got me into football quite early. My mum and my sister still go to games now. And so it was kind of like all the way through school, I was like, right, what can I do? I don't think I'm good enough to play, which is a shame, and to earn money from it. So it's kind of what else could I do? So it was like, oh, right, well, we could talk about it. And journalism became an option. I structured my choices at school around something like that. And then to be honest, when I was about 16, my parents forced me to contact a local radio station to ask if there was any work experience. The news team said no. The sports team said yes. So I ended up going to Hallam FM, working behind the scenes for a few years, started doing a journalism degree at the University of Sheffield after my A-levels. And then because I'd done okay at Hallam, I did my first ever kind of reporting on air gig at Hallam. Radio Sheffield contacted my university, said, can you recommend anybody to come and help us? And thankfully, Seth Bennett at the time, who's somebody that people may well know, who used to work for a Football 11 team at Radio Sheffield, he rang me up and said, do you fancy joining us, switching sides? So I did. And that was 2005. And so we obviously now, 2024, I've been working for Radio Sheffield ever since. I've only been full-time for 5 years. So I had a day job with the police for over a decade, did some PR and other things with them. So that was hard work. So eventually it was amazing to get full-time. And now it's just the dream, you know. It was good enough to do it on a weekend around a day job, but to now do it full time and to be, you know, commentating every weekend, hosting the phone-ins in the week, interviewing all the players and managers, covering some of the other sports that we do. Dream job. Said it before. It's a dream job, and I feel very lucky to do it. And I hope that comes across because I care about the local area and I care about what I'm doing. And I feel very lucky to do what I do.
Yeah. Is it one of those situations where and oftentimes you got to pinch yourself when you're like, am I really doing this? Is this really my day in and day out job? Is it one of those where you, as you said in the beginning, you know, you planned on, you know, maybe getting into something like that, but now that it's more than a dream, is it kind of like, wow, I can't believe I'm doing this?
100%. Yeah. I think if you ever lose that, then that's the time to start thinking about doing something else, because it's one of those roles and professions that lots of people would kill to do. And I know that. I know there's loads of people out there and people would love to have the job that I have. I wanted to have the job that I've got for so long, and I've finally got it. And it is, yeah. I think if you're ever having a tough day, and don't get me wrong, I say this to everyone, because it's a dream job doesn't mean that it's easy. Doesn't mean that it's not pressure. Doesn't mean that it's not hard work. Doesn't mean that we travel, you know, we spend a lot of time on the road and there's unglamorous parts to it and there's hard parts to it. But equally, you've got to look at it and think, well, this is special, you know, and to be able to do that for a living, you know, support my family and do it this way. Yeah, you've got to look at it that way. And yeah, like I said, there's people in the industry that I think have lost sight of just the how fortunate they are to do something that's so exciting, so fun. You know, if anybody can get paid to do something that you're passionate about, I mean, that's the goal, isn't it? That's the dream.
That's what I was about to say. As you said, millions of people want to be in your shoes. I am one too, but it would be crazy to have a American sounding Blades commentator. They'd be like,
oh, it'd be nice to mix it up.
They'd turn off the radio and they'd be like, yeah, we've had enough. We've had enough. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He doesn't sound like us. Trust me, I've heard it. The one question I do have for you. Okay, you give the play-by-play on radio.
Yep.
I am one of the. I mean, I'm 34 years old. I grew up during a time where listening to baseball games over here in America or any sort of sporting event on the radio just brings me back to my childhood. So I still love listening to you and Saba on the radio. Now, granted, every game's you can watch on any platform nowadays. Now, back then you couldn't hardly find them. In your opinion, in taking your radio bias out, do you think doing a game on live TV is not as good as doing it on live on radio? Do you think it's harder to do it on radio than live TV?
They're different skills. And I think that's something that you have to appreciate and realize. I've only done little bits and pieces of kind of TV over the years, and it is a different skill, because at the end of the day, you've got the big difference between the two. In one, your audience can see it, and the other, your audience can't see it. So TV, it's kind of all about adding to what you can see and explaining things, and maybe adding a bit of color or some statistics or some insight. You're doing all that on radio, but all that's got to be interwoven with the fact that your audience can't see.
Yeah.
So your number one on radio is what's happening. What's happening? What's the score? Where's the ball? Who's on the ball? What are the teams doing? Paint the picture of where you are and the sights and sounds and smells and everything else, and bring the game to life. You know, like use your, in your voice, rise and fall. You know, when there's an attack, you get a bit more excited. When there's a goal, you get very excited. But then when it slows down, you slow down. And then it's about learning your craft then. Only now are there starting to be modules in courses around sports commentary. There's one locally at Hallam Uni, because I did an input there recently, because Seth, who I mentioned earlier, now is a tutor there. But there's no handbooks, there's no like degree in commentating. So anybody who sits there and says this is the definitive way of doing it, there isn't a definitive way of doing it. There's preference, and obviously the best people are the people that are liked by the most people, really, in terms of their delivery. And there's clearly ways that people do things that are looked upon as really good. But in TV, if you're shouting all over it all the time like you do on radio, it'd be too much. So you've got to kind of let the game breathe and add a bit. Whereas on radio, you obviously, if you don't speak for 2 or 3 seconds, it feels like 10 years.
Yeah.
But equally, you've got to take a breath, and you've got to use that to paint your picture. You've got to basically bring people with you. You're the eyes and ears of the people listening. And I don't get me wrong, I'm clearly biased because of what I do. But I think even if I worked in TV, I would still prefer radio as a medium, just because it's more personal. Yeah. Because you feel like you're in the game. You're constantly in the game. When I'm covering any of our local teams or what have you, you know that there's people listening that are hanging off your every word, and that's very powerful, and that can really motivate you to do a really good job. And you're not going to get it all right. One of the benefits of radio is if you do muck up every now and again and you get a player wrong or you call something wrong, then you can kind of skirt over it, and it's not too bad because the people at home can't see it.
Yeah.
But when you listen back to it later, or say as it is with Sheffield United, a lot of the time your commentary is synced up with the pictures for social and for YouTube. It's quite obvious if you make an error. So you don't want to make one, it happens because it's all quick, it's all live, there's no second go at it. And that's the thrill of it, really, that everything's live. You don't know what's going to happen and you're there. You're in the game. It's the best way of being part of the game without actually playing for me.
Yeah, I mean, I've almost, because on some Saturdays and most Saturdays, if I'm not traveling, I'll do the Sheffield United way watch along, and it's to the listeners that can't watch the game, or they might have it on, but they're enthralled with me. And I'm not gonna lie, I've taken a lot of what I've listened to you in your commentary, and I've tried to instill it in, still making it my own. But like you said, you got to let when to let the game breathe, and let it, take a second to just let it go, because I'm watching the game, and I'm relaying it back to, it may be on some occasions 500, 600, 1,000 people that are watching at a time, and I like that feeling, because I feel like you said, they're hanging on your every word at some points. And that's clearly, if you take from the very first time I got behind this screen and sat there and was paired with the Noah, the other half of the red half of Sheffield, I took it upon myself to do a solo, and I by myself, and I'm literally talking to a screen, and there's no one to add color or anything. And I'm my own broadcaster, and it's a passion of mine. It's what is like, even though we're in a barren run and the team in the season is gone, I mean, it still, gets me going. And I like listening to you on Radio Sheffield, because even in a 0-0 draw, I feel like it's end to end, and there might be a goal any second. So I am like, the analogy over here is you pay for the whole seat, but you only need to use the edge. I am always on the edge of my seat when I listen to you. And I credit you for being able to, in a 0-0 draw or one of the most boring games you have ever watched, I give you kudos for being able to lay it out there like, man, this is one of the best games of the season, despite the score being 0-0 for 90 plus minutes.
Yeah, that's very kind for one. And experience is huge. It amazes me now that I've been doing this for nearly 20 years, and commentating is definitely the best part of the job. It's the biggest passion part of it for me. Solo commentary, like you've just described, is probably the hardest bit. We do some games with a summariser, as you mentioned, Carl Saba and a few others for Sheffield United, whereas a lot of games we do, if we're the second game on a weekend, the second feature game, you'll be on your own. And that it is a totally different. If you haven't got somebody alongside you, then it is harder, because you've not got somebody else to go to. And if the game's poor, then there could be a lot of fill-in. So yeah, you update people on the scores. You've got your research, so you can talk through a little bit of that. But you just get kind of a little bit more comfortable with yourself and being on air. But don't get me wrong, at first it's quite hard to do. If you just got to try and not think about all the people that are listening, in a way.
Yeah, it's true.
It's hard to do that at times, but the moment you start thinking about how many people or whatever else, your mind goes and you're like, oh my God, and you're not concentrating. Have in mind like the one person that you're trying to speak to and guide through the game is a good way of looking at it. Yeah. But equally, yeah, like it's a skill. It's a fun skill. It sets the pulses going, definitely. Yeah. That kind of same match day feel. And and a question I get from a few people is, do you miss being a fan? Do you miss going to games as a supporter? Absolutely do I miss going to games as a supporter. But would I give this up for that? No. Not a chance.
Agreed. Not a chance. Agreed. So I'll ask this question to you. It's a two-parted question, or a two-sided question. What is your best moment as a commentator? And to bring it down just a little bit as the ebbs and flow. What is your worst moment as a commentator?
Oh, good questions. Good questions. I mean, anything you get wrong, like I said, if you call a goal wrong, you get a goal scorer wrong, it plays on your mind for a while. Thankfully, it doesn't happen too often. A lot of the times you can't help it because it might be a big melee of bodies or whatever else, but it really does play on your mind. I think for me as well, like situations like last weekend, the Luton game, where my voice was just terrible. And it was one of those touch and go decisions that clearly I didn't get right in terms of I probably should have been tucked up in bed, not doing the game. But you feel on those, those moments, because like last weekend was one of those games where I was pleased with what I managed to do with how I was feeling. But Sheffield United winning away in the Premier League, the nature of that Archer goal, the nature of that Sousa goal, I was pleased with what I did, but I knew that like if I was 100%, I could have done more. And I think that's always frustrating. So that's kind of the down bits. I'm probably like a lot of commentators. You're overly hard on yourself. You'll have done most things right on a weekend, but it'll be those bits that you get wrong, or you muck up, or you stumble over this, or you get a wrong player, and you're just picky. But I mean, that's how you get better and improve, and all those kind of things. In terms of best moments, I mean, we did a Blades Heaven episode over Christmas with a couple of with Jimmy from Blades Rambling, Ian from Four Blades, and reflecting on that. I mean, there was a couple last year that were really good. The Tommy Doyle Blackburn goal in the quarterfinal of the FA Cup last year, because I nailed it. And when you absolutely nail a goal, when you know that you've done it as well as you can. I mean, for me, that's your scoring a goal. You come away from the game and you're like, your match ball's tucked under your arm, and you're like, yes, you've got one chance of doing it, one chance of doing it live, no second takes, no nothing. And because it was last minute, because it was top corner, because it was a brilliant goal, and then I got commentators from, I think Luke Wildman, who works for Canadian TV, that used to work for Radio Sheffield, messaged me, and a couple of other commentators messaged me and said, "Oh, I've heard your clip and well done." And when you get people from like that saying, "I've heard it," and Sheffield United actually put the goal commentary out without the pictures, they never do that. Yeah. So to see that go out as a commentator and for people to be reacting to it was amazing. Apart from that, I mean, I've had some amazing moments. Commentating at Wembley, I've managed to call the winning goal at Wembley for Rotherham in the Papa John's final, as it was. Commentating at Wembley and calling a winner in a Wembley Cup final was always on the dream tick list. Yeah, commentating on FA Cup semi-final last year, Sheffield United against Man City, on the dream list. And then some of the other highlights were when I've been the pitch side reporter at playoff finals. I did it a couple of times for Doncaster when I was really at the start of my career in 2006, 2007. I did it for Barnsley in 2016 at Wembley again. And so to be on the pitch at the end, after the team's just won, just got promoted, you're with all the players. Yeah, again, just moments that you look back on and think, yeah, that's why you get into it. That's why you get into it.
Oh, man, you are, I am very envious of you. I am. It's something that I know in my life I will never get to cover because I'm over here, but it seems to be one of the hardest things to get into. And, everybody and their brother wants to be a commentator. And, there's people that, that excel at this. And then there's people that know people that are able to get into that position. And you're like, I've been working my tail off, and you just, the right people, and you got it. And that's what kills me.
But you need a bit of that. You do need a bit. Look, for all the hard work and everything else, you do need that bit of luck. You also make your own luck. You as a journalist and reporter, you develop contacts and you get to know people. And through me working for Radio Sheffield for so many years, I put myself in a position where I could have a go at being full time. I honestly thought that having spent 13 years having a day job, outside of sport, I didn't think it would ever happen.
Yeah.
I'm being totally honest in that. I thought my kind of chance had gone, and I'd made my peace with, I do this at weekends around a day job, which means I still get to commentate, I still get to cover loads of games and whatever else, but equally, I'm not one of the main guys, so I'll never get the big games, which was always what you wanted to. So I, never say never. I mean, you just got to keep if you genuinely believe it, and you've got to be honest with yourself. You'll know if you're decent at it.
Yeah,
you've got to be honest with yourself, so you'll know if you're decent at it.
For sure. This is going to be a funny question. How fun is it to work with Carl Saba? Because just his goal reactions, and even anything that doesn't go in, he just elevated. Oh, there you go. I mean, he's just like having Sheffield United fans right beside you. Is there at any time have you had to like grab him because he's like got way out of control? And what's it like working with him, man?
Put it this way, it splits opinion in the Radio Sheffield office about how much Carl cheers and jumps and does everything else over the top of your commentary. I like Carl. I think the fact that I want my summarisers to care about the club.
Yeah.
And we're lucky at Radio Sheffield that the vast majority of people that do our games care. Carl, John Pearson at Wednesday, Ronnie Moore at Rotherham, goal goes in, you'll hear them yelping in different ways and getting involved. They care. And at the end of the day, as a supporter, that's what you want. When you hear people doing it on the TV, on nationally, on just doing games, they're doing it. Obviously, it's a passion and it's great, and they're a form of football. But if it's not necessarily their club, these people, this is their club. It matters to them. And for me, as somebody that grew up watching local football, grew up seeing Carl Saba and other people and seeing Ronnie Moore managing, to actually be working with these people is phenomenal. And when you're traveling to games with Carl and you're chewing the fat over what's been going on in his week, and the stuff that he does at Shirecliffe and the podcast, we had him in this week and had a good catch up and did a Blades Heaven this week. It's incredible. And he's an infectious guy. He's a very humble guy, very loves his sweets, loves his jelly sweets. There's always some jelly sweets on the go with Carl, so that's always a bonus when you go to an away game. But he cares about the club, and he's another example of somebody that has bought into Sheffield and Sheffield United and local football, that's got his life's now around the area, that obviously wasn't from there. He's a London boy and everything else. So he's great fun to work with. He's passionate, he cares, and you have to just wait for him getting all excited around the goals and build your commentary around that. So there's no way you can stop it. There's no way you can stop him doing that. And I know a lot of fans wouldn't. They love hearing that. They love hearing that. In terms of your goal clip, sometimes it's like, oh, Carl, shut up. I'm trying to do this, that, and the other. But equally, you don't want to take that out of it. And that's the moment. And at the end of the day, if Sheffield United scoring a goal in the Premier League is a big deal, because it doesn't happen very often.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. Very true. Yeah. It's crazy, man. Because when we score, he goes absolutely mad. It is just, and it feels like every supporter is doing the same. Couple more questions before we get out of here. What is your favorite ground you've been to? I guess I should say this: non-Big Six, non-Wembley. What's your favorite ground you've been to do commentary at?
That is a good question, because I like a traditional football stadium, e.g. knackered, old, battered, proper football ground from many years ago.
Mm-hmm.
There's loads. I mean, anything that fits that description always is. I mean, like, I'm going to Grimsby tomorrow with Doncaster, and Grimsby, it's just, it's got weird little stands here, that and the other. It's from back in the day, but they're always great to go to. I mean, some of ours local, like Oakwell at Barnsley, because I was the Barnsley reporter for many years, always has a special place because where you still commentate from, it's wooden seats, it's wooden benches, you've got pillars in the way, you've got the fans in front of you that get to know you. And I always love going back to Oakwell. I love the old grounds more than the new builds. Yeah. And even though, say, Rotherham is probably one of my favourite new builds because they've actually made it the right size. They've not got it too big. It's got a bit of character because it's got a low side and a tall side and things like that. They're pretty good. I've got to admit, they're pretty good. Big Six wise, well, any of the kind of new ones, Tottenham's just off the chart.
Oh, I could
went to Tottenham this year with Sheffield United for the first time. Everyone I'd spoken to said how incredible it is, both from a fan perspective, from a playing perspective, coaching perspective, media perspective, and it is off the chart. Your position where you commentate from, your facilities, everything was just amazing. So to commentate there was a real privilege. So, and I'm very much looking forward to, because there's only Arsenal's ground and Liverpool's in the Premier League that I've not been to now. So I didn't do the Emirates this year. I mean, thankfully, United got 5-0.
Yeah.
I am actually going to Anfield in a few weeks. So me and Andy, because it's a Wednesday night, me and Andy are going to Anfield, and I've never been to Anfield before. So I'm really looking forward to that because, again, one of the real traditional powerhouse grounds. I know they've just had it develop further. But yeah, that I'm really looking forward to. But equally, you give me a 5,000, 10,000 ground that's oldie worldy and stuck in the past. Love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Screw these new state-of-the-art stadiums. I mean, Spurs Stadium has to be something if they play NFL games there. So, I mean, the NFL just doesn't want to play at any random old ground. It has to be something. It has to be something out of this world. Before we go, all of our guests that I have on in the preview pods I do, I end it with this question. And I don't know that it doesn't. I'll just say the question. What is your go-to beverage? I usually say pre-match beverage to the away supporters, or if we're going to their ground. What is your favorite beverage?
Oh,
it can be alcohol, it can be non-alcohol, it can be whatever you want it to be.
On a match day, it would be a Bovril.
Okay.
Have you know what a Bovril is, Chad?
No, I can't.
Oh, my friend, we are educating this evening. We are educating. Bovril is a it's a favourite drink of football fans up and down the land. You know, a Bovril and a pie is pretty much like your standard football fare. It is a beefy drink that is essentially like drinking gravy. Really? I know I'm really selling this right now, but for the historical football fan, there is nothing better on a cold night than a warm cup of Bovril. Just to warm the senses and properly get you into that old school kind of football feeling. So that would be my immediate answer. I've got to admit, there's loads of other settings that you go to, this, that, and the other. But yeah, I'd have a nice cup of Bovril just to settle me down and make me think of football and those nights under the lights, as Chris Wilder would say.
I will. The next time I'm over in England, I'm definitely going to have to try it for sure. I will definitely have to try it. Adam, I just want to say thanks and appreciate you coming on. I know you could have got a message from us and said, piss on him, I don't want to come on, but I really appreciate you coming on. Are you going to be on commentary for United's game against Brighton Sunday?
No, not in Brighton on Sunday. Andy's doing it with Carl on Sunday. We took the decision this week. I wasn't doing the game anyway, but because of how my throat's been last week, thankfully it's on the mend. But I was meant to be doing Barnsley at Fleetwood this weekend, but because that's full match commentary on your own, we didn't think that'd be the greatest idea. So I'm doing some updates with Doncaster. And then next week I'm doing Rotherham at Ipswich on Tuesday, and then I'm going to Wolves a week on Sunday with Sheffield United. So I've been to Molineux a few times now. Good place to work. Sheffield United, I mean, we'll briefly talk shop before we finish. These two games now are fascinating. I know me and Carl talked a lot about it on Blades Heaven this week, but they're not teams that are in the big or greedy six. They're not, the teams that you think you fear dramatically. They've both had good seasons. And I just kind of feel that if Sheffield United can somehow emerge from these two games with 3-4 points, people will start to genuinely think that there's, let's say, a chance of getting involved in a relegation fight. I still don't think Sheffield United are staying up. I think it's too much to overcome. But if a couple of teams get points deductions, if the Blades can pick up points, I looked at all the fixtures now till the end of the season. There's at least 6 games that aren't included in these two that I would look at as games that Sheffield United will be thinking we can get a win in that. Then who knows? But yeah, big couple of weeks for me. I think if United get nothing out of it and other teams win, then it's dead in the water, and we're not. It's totally looking to next season. But that gap closes, get some points. Who knows? Might keep things interesting.
And I'm there with you as well. I don't believe we're staying up. No way in how. I just want to get involved in a relegation fight. How cool would that be to, instead of the last however many games, 12, 14 games we have left in the season, how cool would it be to have something hanging in the balance for almost every game? Yeah, if we get relegated with 5 or 6 to go, that's not as bad as getting relegated with 10 to go. And it gives you something to feel instead of just going into a game and being like, we're going to lose again. We're going to lose again. As I do most of these preview pods, I start them off with, I'm here to preview another United defeat. And I hate being like that, but I mean, for the most part, we lost we had 1 win in 10 before we beat Luton. I mean, so you can't hate me for saying that, but just if the boys would just go out and get us close, and if points deductions were to happen, United could be the first team to get relegated and then stay in the division if they wait till the end of the season for the points deduction to come out. You never know.
Who knows? I mean, the Premier League's a crazy animal that kind of just makes things up as it goes along to suit the bigger clubs. But hey, that's a much longer conversation that would take a long time. But Sheffield United got to enjoy the last few months. Whatever happens, it's there's lots wrong with the Premier League, but it's amazing to be part of both. From a playing perspective, I'm sure, and a coaching perspective, but also from a media and a fan perspective, it's you're at the top table.
Yeah, for sure.
Dining at the top table.
For sure. Well, as I said, Adam, appreciate it coming on. If you're watching this video, and I don't know why you wouldn't subscribe or be following the Red Half of Sheffield on Twitter and YouTube, Red Half of Sheffield. And until the next match preview, I believe is Wolves I'm going to do, I will leave you with this: Up the Blades.